Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. Let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so I just think that this has to be said. It needs to be said, and I'm ready to say it. Joe Judge is not the coach of the New York Football Giants going forward. It's not happening. He's not the guy. We need to cut our losses as soon as possible. The first season we went 6-10. The second half of the season was promising. This next season, it looks like we're probably going to lose out if we have to start Jake Fromm at quarterback. And I'm convinced that that's going to be enough to give Joe Judge the excuse of getting another year and not being blamed for the fact that his team doesn't seem to be getting better. His team doesn't seem to be getting better. Players across the board seem to be regressing as the season goes along, besides Xavier McKinney. Everything is a mess. The penalties are still out of control. Guys cannot execute in the most critical areas of the field. Third down, red zone. We cannot execute in the most important parts of the game. We are worst in the entire NFL and in red zone scoring percentage. 41% in the red zone. You realize that the next worst team scores at 50% in the red zone, which three teams are tied at 29 at 50% in the red zone. The Giants are scoring 41.9%, so you can say 42%. So teams are scoring, the next worst team is 8% better than us at scoring in the red zone. The Giants' third down offense is 26 in the entire NFL at 36%. This is all unacceptable. And you can blame this on Freddie Kitchens. You can blame it on Daniel Jones. You can blame it on Jason Garrett. And they all deserve blame. But guess who hired Freddie Kitchens? Guess who hired Jason Garrett? And people might say that Jason Garrett was forced on Joe Judge. I have nothing to prove that. He may have been a suggestion, but I have nothing that says that you can prove that. We did see that Joe Judge wanted to fire Jason Garrett last year. But at the end of the day, the way that Joe Judge manages the games, if you look early on in this season, I count at least 2 or 3 games that Joe Judge lost is because of horrible time management, horrible decisions, horrible times where he decided to challenge something that didn't need to be challenged. How many times this year are we going to call a timeout to avoid a delay of game and then have a false start? Or call a timeout for any reason to make sure that we get the play right, and then we still give up a big play or we still don't convert on that third down? Last game, and someone in the comments, it just baffles me how someone can defend just the clock management that Joe Judge has put on tape. I don't understand how people can defend that. Someone really wanted to get into an argument with me in my last video when I said that the clock was running out. Let me make it very clear for people. The clock was running out. There was 18 seconds on the game clock, and there were 18 seconds on the play clock. You realize every coach knows this. Every coach with some sort of wherewithal knows that if they both have the same amount of time on each clock, that they're going to run out and the quarter is going to run out. And Joe Judge went into that play with saying, just let the quarter run out. And then he panicked and really thought that the clock was going to cause us to lose 5 yards and we were going to get a penalty for delay of game, when it was impossible because we didn't have enough time on the play clock to be able to get a delay of game. It's just little things like that. It's the fact that he challenged the scoring play early on in this season, challenging turnovers. He seems completely out of his element. First year, he seemed like he had great control, but maybe you add the fans and the crowd into it, he just cannot focus. And that's just not good enough for the New York Football Giants right now. Joe Judge has not elevated this team in the way that he did last year. And then you look at Patrick Graham. Yes, Patrick Graham has done a pretty good job with what he's had. He hasn't had the best talent. He doesn't have a pass rusher that he can even lean on at all. So he's been doing a pretty solid job. But the way that we play defense is Patriots-esque. It's Bill Belichick-esque. We tell teams you got to drive the length of the field and not make mistakes. The problem is when you have a team that's not supremely talented, when you have a team that's not absolutely, completely disciplined, You make a mistake when you try to play bend but don't break, and you give up points. You give up points every time. If you make a mistake, you get a penalty, you're going to give up points because not only are you depending on that offense to make mistakes, you're depending on your defense not to make mistakes. And it works against those big play offenses when they're impatient, but against a quarterback like Tom Brady, who can throw those short passes all day, who can dink and dunk all the way down the field. Not saying the dinking and dunking is bad if that's what the defense is giving you, but against quarterbacks that can stay patient and do that all day, we can't win. We can't win those games. Tua, he was able to do that to a lesser extent of Tom Brady and able to put up just enough points to win the game. But at the end of the day, our philosophy is broken. Our philosophy, if you look at the way that the Giants play games, bad offense, bad offensive coordinator, bad players or not, the way that they want to win games is 13-7. They want to win games 9-3. They want to win games 20-17. Every single game, Joe Judge says after every week, after every interview, after every, the post game when they're in the locker room celebrating and the Giants post it, what does he say? I told you this will be a close one. He wants his teams to be in close games, close, low-scoring games. It seems like that's our philosophy. Because if you play bend but don't break and you don't take shots on offense and you play for field position, you're at your own 46 or you're in the opposing 40-yard line and it's 4th and 2 and you don't want to go for it because you want to play field position, and you have a punter that at times can pin you inside the 1-yard line, inside of the 5-yard line. But most of the time, he has a 36-yard punt. He has a 34-yard punt. And the clutch last week, not this past game, but the week before, he had a 32-yard punt that almost allowed, I think it was the Eagles. It might have been the Eagles or the Raiders, but one of those games, it was a punt that was so short that basically made that a short field for the opposing team. So it doesn't seem like he has an awareness of what his players do well. Kenny Golladay, I don't care who the offensive coordinator is. The head coach has final say in things like this, how players will be used, how things will be leveraged. How is Kenny Golladay? He just got a fade route target a week and a half ago or a week ago. That's his first fade target. That was the first time you throw him a jump ball when he's already basically checked out because he came here expecting one thing and you gave him something else. How does Kadarius Toney not get used until week 4 or 5? That could be an injury thing, so I'll leave that alone. But how do these players continue to get used in the wrong way? Why does Nate Solder continue to go out there and play right tackle, and you don't give anybody else a chance? I understand that they said Matt Parrott plays soft, and I kind of agree with that. But why not give that guy a shot when Nate Solder's playing the way that he is? How does Matt Parrott not end up behind just Nate Solder, but also end up behind Corey Cunningham, and he's not even a jumbo tight end anymore? I don't know. It's just a very, very frustrating thing to watch. It seems like everything he said has been a complete 180 of what has actually been done, especially on offense. Seems like Patrick Graham is the best coach on this team, and everybody else is kind of coasting off of Patrick Graham's success. Because why are we competitive in these games? Because of the defense. We're competitive because of the defense. And you can't give Joe Judge all the credit when Patrick Graham, you can't say Patrick Graham is some elite coach, and then every other aspect of the team stinks, and the clock management stinks. And then all of a sudden, it's only, it's only Joe Judge's fault, or it's only Jason Garrett's fault that the offense stinks. Joe Judge has to get some of this blame. The entirety of the team, besides the defense, looks completely incompetent, and the defense can't even execute in the clutch most of the time. The last 2 minutes of the first half, defense gives up touchdowns. So, again, we need to get a coach in here with the philosophy that fits modern day football, because we're not able to run the football down people's throats. We failed to build that offensive line. Sorry, Joe Judge got here halfway through it, but we failed to build that offensive line. And guess what? We didn't address one offensive line position in the entire draft in 2020 or 2020. Yeah, in 2021. This past draft, we didn't address the offensive line. That's partially Joe Judge's fault. We're not running the football down people's throats. That's not happening. So you're not going to be able to play this ball control defense, this ball control offense, and then play bend but don't break defense. That's not how you win games in the NFL. It just won't happen. It won't happen if you can't run the football and you can't score in the red zone, because you have to capitalize and you have to score every single time you get that ball in the red zone. You better be looking at a score, because if you don't, you took so much time off of the clock where you could have had 3, 4 drives, or even 2 drives, and you took all that time off the clock, and the other team is taking all the time off the clock. You have no time to score 30 points. I mean, I don't even know how you could possibly score 30 points when most of the time you're trying to you're trying to have long drives. So, again, I believe that Joe Judge is not the right answer for coach of the New York Giants unless he can really change his philosophy, full stop. I just don't see how this can fit. We need a coach that believes in scoring points. You do not have to be, what did Joe Judge say his first week? Some guru scheme. You don't have to be a guru. You just have to believe, even if he's a defensive guy, you have to believe that you need to score points. Of course, you got to stop the other team, but you need to score points and you need to block. You need to block. You need to pass block. You need to run block. But more importantly, you need to score points. No matter what is on the field, you should not be averaging less than 18 points a game in this modern NFL. So I believe that we definitely need to be looking somewhere else for head coach. Everything else besides that, GM, we know that Dave Gettleman is gone, whether he gets fired or he retires. But head coach needs to be where they look next. And I'll just allow that next GM and next head coach to decide what to do with Daniel Jones, what to do with all these other players like James Bradbury, like Blake Martinez, like Kenny Golladay. You're not really moving. But what do you do with all these players? Let them decide. But we need a new philosophy in here. We need to get John Mara out of the building and have a third party come in and interview these candidates and make these hires. Because all of this bringing in Giants retreads and calling up Bill Belichick and calling up all of these Ernie Accorsi and calling up all of these guys to verify your hires, it doesn't make any sense. So Joe Judge should not be the coach of the New York Football Giants going forward. He needs to be gone. I don't want to see him again here next year. And that's my opinion on that. You guys let me know what you think of Joe Judge so far. Some people think he deserves another year. Me personally, I've seen enough. You saw week 2 or 3. I pretty much said that he's not the guy. And I stand beside that. I haven't watched one of that dude's press conferences because he's a used car salesman and he loves to talk. He loves to spin the narrative and he's a good talker. But at this past press conference when he says that he saw some good things, I mean, come on, man. But that's all I have for today. You guys let me know. What are you thinking of Joe Judge? If you made it this deep into the video, come on, just hit the subscribe button. I make Giants content primarily, draft content secondarily, and during the season, I'm going to be doing a lot of reacting to pretty much most of the NFL games and everything NFL. So if you made it this deep, go ahead and join the D6 squad.